This is Silicon Valley, the richest region in the richest country on earth. The average household income here exceeds $200,000. Tech workers pull salaries that would make them wealthy anywhere else in America. So why are thousands of them living in their cars? This isn't a story about failure. This isn't about people making bad choices. This is about what happens when an entire economic system breaks down. When making six figures means you're still one emergency away from homelessness. Let me show you what's broken. Here in Mountain View, Palo Alto, Sunnyvale, the heart of Silicon Valley, the median household income is over $150,000. In some zip codes, it's over $250,000. These aren't minimum wage workers. These are software engineers, product managers, designers, people who, by any traditional metric, are rich. But here's the catch. A one-bedroom apartment in Mountain View averages $3,500 a month. That's $42,000 a year, just for a place to sleep. If you're making $150,000, your take-home after taxes is roughly $90,000. $42,000 for rent means you're spending nearly half your income just on housing. And that's before utilities, before food, before transportation, before anything else. A carton of eggs here costs $8. A gallon of milk, $6. A basic lunch, $15 to $20. Gas sits above $5.50 a gallon, sometimes pushing $6. So you're making what sounds like an enormous salary, and somehow at the end of every month, there's nothing left. You can't save. You can't build an emergency fund. You're living paycheck to paycheck on six figures. And it's not like you can just leave, because your job is here. Your industry is here. If you're a software engineer, this is where the opportunities are. The salaries might be high, but they're high because everything else is higher. A software engineer in Austin making $100,000 has more purchasing power than one in San Francisco making $180,000. But the jobs are here. So people stay. And when they can't afford rent anymore, they get creative. This is what happens when the math stops working. This is an RV park in Mountain View. Every vehicle here is occupied by someone working in tech. Senior engineers, product managers, people who would be upper middle class anywhere else. They're paying $800 to $1,200 a month for a parking space with hookups. It's not ideal. It's cramped. It's uncomfortable. It lacks privacy. But it's half the cost of an apartment, and for many, it's the only way to stay in the area and keep their jobs. Others aren't even that lucky. They sleep in their cars, in Walmart parking lots, in gym parking lots, anywhere that doesn't kick them out. They shower at the gym, brush their teeth in gas station bathrooms, and show up to work at companies worth billions. Think about that. You work for one of the richest companies in human history. You write the code that powers the apps on billions of phones. And you sleep in your car. This isn't new. Local news has covered this for years, but it keeps getting worse, not better. Because the fundamental problem isn't being solved. Silicon Valley isn't building enough housing. Not even close. For every 10 jobs created, maybe one housing unit gets built. The math is simple and brutal. More people, same housing. Prices go up. And the people who already own homes don't want more housing built. Because more housing means their property values might stabilize or even drop. So they fight every new development. They show up to city council meetings. They cite traffic concerns, character of the neighborhood, environmental impact. What they really mean is, I got mine, and I don't want you to get yours. The median home price in Palo Alto is over $3 million. In Mountain View, it's $1.8 million. In Sunnyvale, $1.6 million. These aren't mansions. These are normal three-bedroom houses built in the 1950s. That 70-year-old house with outdated plumbing and no air conditioning, $1.6 million. Because it's the only thing available, and 100 people are bidding on it. Even if you make $200,000 a year, even if you save for a decade, you're looking at a mortgage payment of $10,000 a month. That's $120,000 a year. You'd need to make over $300,000 to afford it comfortably. So an entire generation of workers has accepted that they will never own a home here. They'll rent forever, or they'll leave. And increasingly, they're choosing to leave. The great tech exodus. Engineers moving to Austin, to Denver, to Miami, to anywhere the math works better. Companies are following because they have to. Because even tech salaries have limits. The pandemic accelerated this. Remote work proved you don't need to be in the Bay Area to do the job. So why pay Bay Area prices? And now Silicon Valley faces a new crisis. The companies are leaving. The workers are leaving. The tax base is shrinking. But the cost of living, still just as high. It didn't used to be this way. 50 years ago, Silicon Valley was affordable. Tech workers could buy homes, raise families, save for retirement. The valley was still filled with orchards and affordable housing. But then something changed. As tech companies exploded in value, they needed more workers. Thousands, then tens of thousands. The population surged, but the housing didn't keep up. Because cities like Palo Alto, Los Altos, Cupertino, they zone most of their land for single-family homes only. No apartments, no condos, just detached houses on large lots. That worked fine when the population was small. But when you're trying to house hundreds of thousands of workers, single-family zoning is a disaster. It's mathematically impossible to build enough housing when you're limited to one family per lot. 1 acre of single-family homes houses maybe 5 to 10 families. 1 acre of mid-rise apartments houses 50 to 100 families. But mid-rise apartments are illegal in most of Silicon Valley. The people who already owned homes didn't want change. They liked their quiet neighborhoods. They liked their property values going up 20% a year. So they blocked new construction at every opportunity. Meanwhile, tech salaries kept climbing. In 2000, a senior engineer made maybe $120,000. By 2010, $180,000. By 2020, $250,000 or more. Salaries tripled, but housing supply barely moved. This is basic economics. Demand goes up, supply stays flat, prices explode, and that's exactly what happened. There's another factor, venture capital. Billions of dollars flowing into startups, which use that money to hire workers, which increases demand for housing, which pushes prices higher. The money feeding the tech boom is the same money destroying housing affordability. When a company goes public and creates instant millionaires, what do those millionaires do? They buy houses with cash, outbidding everyone else, further reducing supply and driving prices up. So you have regular workers competing against people with millions in stock options. There's no competition. The regular workers lose. Bidding wars become normal. Houses sell for hundreds of thousands over asking price. Sellers don't even look at offers without substantial down payments. If you're scraping together 10% down, you're not getting the house. The wealth inequality became staggering. You have people worth hundreds of millions living next to people making 6 figures who can barely afford rent. Both work in tech. Both are educated professionals. But one got stock options early and one didn't. And at the bottom of this broken system are the people who serve the tech workers. The baristas, the janitors, the retail workers, the teachers. They make $40,000 to $60,000 a year. In an area where rent is $3,500 a month, the math is impossible for them, completely impossible. So they commute 2 hours each way from the Central Valley where rent is affordable. Or they live 6 people to a 2-bedroom apartment. Or they leave entirely, which creates a new crisis. The region can't function without service workers. But service workers can't afford to live there. So businesses can't find employees, schools can't find teachers. The whole system starts breaking down. You can see it happening in real time. Local businesses closing because they can't find workers. Restaurants operating with half their tables unavailable because they're understaffed. Schools with 40 kids per class because they can't hire teachers. Teachers in Silicon Valley with master's degrees and years of experience make $60,000 to $80,000. That sounds decent. Until you remember, rent is $42,000. They're taking home poverty wages after housing. Some teachers sleep in their cars. Others commute 3 hours daily. Others leave education entirely and take admin jobs at tech companies that pay twice as much. California has a teacher shortage crisis. Silicon Valley has it worse. Same problem for police, firefighters, paramedics. Essential public servants can't afford to live in the communities they serve. So departments are understaffed. Response times increase. Services decline. Birth rates have collapsed in Silicon Valley. Young professionals can't afford to have kids. You need a bigger apartment. Childcare costs $30,000 a year per child. Kids need space and stability. None of that is possible when you're barely affording rent. The population is aging rapidly because young families are leaving. The tax base shifts. Schools close while senior services expand. The entire demographic structure of the region is transforming. And the infrastructure was never designed for this. Roads built for 100,000 people now serve 500,000. Water systems, sewers, electrical grids, all overwhelmed. But there's no money to upgrade because cities can't raise taxes without driving out more residents. The economic engine that powered this boom is starting to sputter. Companies are relocating to Austin, Miami, Phoenix, anywhere operating costs are lower, taking their tax revenue with them. Office buildings sit empty. Parking structures are half full. The commercial real estate market is collapsing because remote work proved you don't need expensive Silicon Valley offices. Cities are facing budget crises. Less tax revenue from companies leaving. Less tax revenue from workers leaving. But the same cost to maintain infrastructure. Some are talking about bankruptcy. This is what happens when you build an economy on unsustainable foundations. When you let housing costs spiral completely out of control. When you prioritize property values over people, eventually the whole structure collapses. So what's the answer? How does this end? Some cities are finally changing zoning laws, allowing apartments, increasing density, building up instead of out. But it's happening slowly, too slowly. The shift to remote work might be the real solution. If you don't need to be in Silicon Valley, the pressure releases. Companies can hire talent anywhere. Workers can live somewhere affordable. Other cities are learning from Silicon Valley's mistakes. Austin, Denver, they're building housing alongside job growth. They're not making the same zoning errors, but they're already seeing prices rise. Real solutions require political will, reforming zoning, building public housing, taxing vacant properties, limiting investor purchases, but every solution faces opposition from people who benefit from the current system. In the meantime, thousands of workers keep living in their cars, paying half their income for rent, or leaving for somewhere the math works better. This is modern America, where you can make $200,000 a year and still struggle to survive, where being rich means being broke, where the system is working exactly as designed for the people who own property and failing everyone else. Silicon Valley created the technology that changed the world, but it couldn't solve the oldest problem in civilization, making sure people have an affordable place to live.